In this video, I'm going to show you how to place the radiator on this Toyota Camry. If you need this or any other part for your car, check us out at oneauto.com. Let's get started. To drain the coolant and avoid making a mess, I'm going to go underneath the vehicle and remove this splash shield here on the passenger side so we can get to the petcock. There are a few 10mm screws holding this on, as well as a couple push clips. Now, not only can we access the lower radiator hose a lot better, but also the drain plug. That's right here. I'm going to put a hose on it so that the coolant can be directed right through this hole. Now spin that plug counterclockwise. That's going to release all the coolant and of course drain it into your collection bucket. If needed, you can use some pliers to help you out. Sometimes these drain plugs get stuck and they can be difficult to break free by hand. Okay, there we go. That's broken free. Let's get this resecured and start draining the coolant. From up top, remove the radiator cap by turning it counterclockwise to allow coolant to drain faster. Once the coolant has drained, remove your hose if you used one, and close this off to prevent any further drippage. Now grab some pliers and let's remove this clamp, pull it back, and remove the lower radiator hose off the radiator. This clamp has the ability to lock in the open position with this tab. However, mine looks like it's not really functioning as it should, so I'm just gonna use it as a regular clamp. Pull this off. Coolant might still come out if it's in the lower radiator hose, so keep that in mind. Have your collection bucket ready. Next, we have to remove this top plastic trim piece here. It's just got a bunch of push clips that hold it down, so remove all of them and then pull it away. All of the push clips I have on here are the style that you have to press down on the center to unlock them. So that's what I'm going to do all the way around, and I'm not going to remove them. I'm just going to pull the shield up as one unit with all the push clips unlocked. Next, let's remove the two 10mm bolts holding on this air intake piece. This will allow you to remove it. Next, let's remove the overflow tank. It's got a hose here. Disconnect that from the radiator. If it's stuck on here, you can use something very gentle to pry it off, but make sure you don't break the hose, or you'll have to source a new one. Just gently push it away like that. Once you get that off, you'll see two 10mm bolts holding this tank onto the radiator, one here, one on the other side. And remove the tank. Take a pair of pliers and remove the clamp for the upper radiator hose. This one also should lock in the open position, but just like the lower one, it won't. So I'm just going to pull it away, leave it over here. Give this a couple twists. If it's really stuck, you can use your pliers. Be very gentle not to break the hose. There we go. Now you can pull this away. Looking a little bit further down, you'll see two electrical connectors for the electric fans. Let's unplug this top one first. Press on that tab and pull this away. And if you look further down, you'll see the second one. Do the same thing, press on the tab and pull it away. Sometimes these get stuck on here from debris buildup over time. There we go. Once you unplug them, it's a good idea to shake the sand out of them. This wiring is clipped onto the fan in two places, one here and one here. Let's unclip both. You can do this in a couple different ways. You can either pry on the connector or on the retainer, or pull on it gently as you squeeze in the two tabs from the back side. On this one, it's easily doable because you can reach it. On this one, it's actually hidden in there, so the only thing you can do is pry on it. There we go. Pull the wiring aside. Next, we have to focus on getting this upper radiator support out, and it's only held on by two 10mm bolts on each side. However, we also have to pull the hood latch off so we can undo this bracket that's behind here, as well as the horns. That way we can remove this and make ourselves a little bit more space. First, I'm going to remove the bolts that hold on the hood latch, these three. They're all 10mm in size. Now you can move this away. You don't have to completely remove the hood latch. However, this right here is a retainer for the hood latch cable. We just have to squeeze in on these tabs and press it through, just like that. This leaves us with one 10mm bolt in the middle. There are two horns. Let's remove both of those. Each horn has a 12mm headed bolt. Sometimes it's going to be difficult to unplug them because the connectors get corroded. So what I'm going to do is actually just leave them connected and put them down in here. Let them hang by the wire. They are not heavy. They will not damage the wire, but it actually avoids the risk of you breaking it if you try to unplug it. And do the same to the other one. This leaves us with two 10mm bolts on each side, so 4 in total. Let's remove them. This will allow us to pull this piece up and expose the top of the radiator. Now to remove the fans off of the radiator, you'll see 3 sets of tabs like these that you have to squeeze. And as you squeeze, push the fan shroud off, and that will allow you to pull the fans right off of the radiator. Okay, there are your fans. There will be two 10mm bolts connecting the AC condenser onto the radiator, one here and one here. Let's remove them both. At the bottom of the radiator, you'll see 2 more 10mm headed bolts. Let's remove those as well. They also hold on the AC condenser onto the radiator. To help out, you can tilt this back, and you can get your socket in there. And the other one. Now separate the AC condenser from the radiator and pull up on the radiator, and there it is. Now take your radiator and slide it down into position. Let's get these bolts at the bottom started. I'm not going to tighten them yet. I want to get all 4 in and then tighten them. And do the same on this side. Start the top ones. Make sure the condenser lines up with this slot on both sides when you do this, and start the bolts in. All right, now that they're all in, let's snug them up. These are small. They are not holding on to a lot of threads, so once they bottom out, which is about here, I'm going to go about at most 1/8 of a turn. That should be plenty tight for these small bolts. You don't want to strip the threads or crack the radiator or anything like that. Do the same on the top side here. And do the same to the 2 bottom ones. These rubber bushings that go at the top of the radiator, it does have some on the bottom too. They're bigger, but the ones at the top you may have to transfer over to your new radiator. If so, pull them straight up off the old one and right on the new one. Install the fans, pull the radiator forward and drop these in. At the bottom they have to line up with some tabs, and at the top they have to lock into these tabs up here. There we go. Make sure the hood latch cable is routed properly above the radiator but below the radiator support at the top here. And speaking of that, take it and line it up. You're gonna have to pull the radiator forward most likely to get it to line up. There it is. Let's put in the bolts on one side. Just start them. Now let's start the other side. Now with all 4 in, let's snug them up. If you're able to torque these, the torque is 9 foot-pounds. That converts to 108 inch-pounds. Now let's put the horns back, reattach them with their 12mm bolts. Make sure the threads on the bolts are clean so that they make a good connection. That's where the horn grounds through. Snug them up. When tightening these, give them about 1/8 of a turn after they bottom out. That's very tight right there. Do the same to the other horn. Let's connect this bolt that goes from the brace here, this bracket at the front, onto the upper radiator support. The torque on this one is also 9 foot-pounds. Let's reattach the hood latch. And snug it up. When tightening this, try to hold it pretty much in its original position. You can see where the bolt marks are usually, so that's how I'm going to line it up. Snug it up. Torque these to 9 foot-pounds as well. Now let's plug in the fans, top connector, and the bottom connector, and resecure the harness. Let's reconnect the upper radiator hose onto the radiator, bring it over, and lock it in with the clamp. I like to put the clamps exactly back where they were because on older hoses it helps them seal up the best. Also, if your clamp stayed open in the locked position, just take a screwdriver and pry it right on that hook and it should pop free. Be careful though, when it snaps, it will hurt you if your finger's in the way. Now take the coolant overflow tank, line it up. I'm going to plug the hose in while I'm at it. And put the 2 bolts back so that you can resecure it properly. Snug this up. Let's put this air intake duct back. Make sure it lines up with that air box and, of course, with the 2 mounting holes. Get the 2 bolts back. Snug this up. Don't over tighten it or you will crack the plastic. Now take this cover, put it back on, and with the style push clips I have, what I have to do is take the center and pop it up. Once they're ready to lock in, take the center and make it flush. So if you go too far down, it'll unlock again, so you have to pull it out, push the center up, and then push it flat. Back underneath, let's reinstall the lower radiator hose. And get the clamp, put it back on. Just like the top one, I'm going to put it exactly where it used to be. Make sure the hose is seated. I'm going to wipe this off just so I make sure I don't confuse it for a potential leak in the future. So now, let's put this shield back. Let's get this shield back up. Make sure you tuck it underneath the bumper on the front here. And in the middle here, this passenger side shield will go over the driver's side shield so that when you clamp it down, it holds both of them together. I'm going to start with my push clips. To fill the cooling system, I have a funnel set up on the radiator cap here. It's a spill-proof funnel, and it also helps bleed because now this is going to be the highest point in the cooling system, and naturally air is going to want to rise in here and bubble out. If you don't have this, well, just make sure you don't spill all over the place and keep the area nice and dry. I'm going to use coolant that is appropriate for this vehicle. If you're unsure of what to use, check your owner's manual, and that should guide you in using the proper type of coolant. I'm going to fill this up, not all the way, but about halfway, and then let it bubble. Naturally, the air is going to want to rise to the top. It stopped bubbling, so at this point you want to run the vehicle until it gets up to operating temperature. Let that water pump circulate all the coolant and hopefully push the rest of the air out of the system, and you'll see it bubbling up through the funnel. In here, you're going to want the blower motor on low, the heat all the way up, and I'd like to have it blow on the vents so I can feel the heat. Make sure recirculate is off and AC is also off. And watch that temperature gauge to make sure it doesn't climb above the halfway point. If it does, shut it off. It's most likely just an air bubble, but as long as it stays at operating temperature, let's shut it off and cap everything off. Squeeze on the upper radiator hose just a little bit as you plug this off if you use one of these funnels, and then let go of that radiator hose as you pull this out. This is going to minimize the spillage here. Now, of course, I still spilled a little bit. I'm going to clean this up with a rag in a little bit, but now we can pull this off and reinstall our radiator cap. It'll find its spot that it wants to sit in and turn it 2 clicks to the right. There you go, that's tight. I'm gonna put the rest of my coolant in my overflow tank. As you can see, it's pretty empty. So if you don't already have it full, go ahead and fill it. Take this cap off and fill it to the full line. Right about there. I know it's a tiny bit under, but that's perfect. That's everything I had in my funnel. As long as it's pretty much full. This is just a reserve, basically. Cap that off, and there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it was helpful. If you have anything to say, leave it in the comments section below. And as always, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you can stay up to date with all of our latest content. Thanks for watching.